my family kicked me out because my sister falsely accused me of stealing her engagement ring. 3 years later, they discovered it in the garbage disposal. I never thought I would be telling this story, but I feel like it's finally time to share it. My name is Ryan, and my life was turned upside down 3 years ago by a false accusation made by my sister Emily. I've spent these years living with the consequences of that accusation and the pain it caused, and I never imagined that I'd be here today, telling you how everything finally unfolded. 3 years ago, I was living at home with my parents, Mark and Diane, in a quiet town. We weren't rich, but we were comfortable. My dad worked as an accountant and my mom was a teacher. Emily and I had always been close growing up. We'd play games, share secrets, and had each other's backs. But as we got older, things began to change. Emily was always the high achiever. She was the popular one in school, always winning awards and excelling in everything she did. Meanwhile, I was just trying to figure things out. I wasn't particularly driven or ambitious, but I was content with where I was. Still, I had no idea how far apart Emily and I would drift once she went off to college. She went to a prestigious university while I stayed home, working part-time jobs and still uncertain about my future. As time passed, Emily became more distant, and I felt like we had grown apart. I was fine with it, but everything changed when Emily got engaged. Emily had been dating her fiancé, Tom, for 2 years when he proposed. He came from a wealthy family, and I'll admit, I always felt a bit out of place around him. He proposed with an antique diamond ring that had been passed down in his family for generations. It was beautiful, and Emily couldn't stop showing it off. The engagement was a big deal in our family. My parents invited everyone they knew to the celebration, and we had a huge party at our house. I didn't know many of Emily's new friends, and I felt like the odd one out. But I went along with it. I was happy for her, even though I couldn't help but feel a little inferior compared to the life she had built for herself. That year, the couple invited several friends over. A month later, disaster struck. It was a Tuesday afternoon, and I was enjoying a rare day off from work, playing video games in my room. Emily was home, taking a break from work to plan her wedding with Mom. I didn't think much of it until I heard Emily scream from downstairs. I rushed down to find Emily in a frenzy, accusing me of stealing her engagement ring. She said she had left it on the kitchen counter while doing the dishes, but when she came back, it was gone. I couldn't believe it. I immediately denied it, but she wouldn't listen. "You're the only one here. You must have taken it. You probably want to sell it so you can finally leave this house," she yelled, tears streaming down her face. My heart sank. I had no idea what was going on, but Emily was insistent. When my parents got home, they sided with her without hesitation. Mom started crying, and Dad looked at me like I was a stranger. They searched my room, turning everything upside down. They didn't find the ring, but they did find some money I had saved up. It wasn't much, just a few $100s for my part-time job, but Emily quickly jumped to conclusions. "Where did you get the money? You must have sold the ring," she said, her voice filled with accusation. The days that followed were pure hell. My parents kept pressuring me to confess and return the ring, even threatening to call the police. I felt completely alone and trapped. After a week of constant accusations and no one listening to me, my parents made a decision that shattered me. They kicked me out. They said they couldn't trust me anymore and that I was bringing shame on the family. I had nowhere to go. My best friend from high school, Jake, offered me his couch, but it wasn't a permanent solution. I spent the next 2 months bouncing from Jake's place to cheap motels, doing whatever odd jobs I could find to survive. It was hard, but I managed to keep going. Eventually, I landed a steady job at a warehouse, and I started rebuilding my life. It wasn't the life I'd imagined, but it was mine. I'd cut all contact with my family. They tried reaching out, but I couldn't bring myself to talk to them. I was hurt, angry, and betrayed. I thought about what happened every day, wondering how my own sister, the person I had grown up with, could accuse me of something like that. For 3 years, I struggled on my own. I worked hard, made new friends, and began to find some purpose. But the pain never went away. Every time a holiday rolled around or I saw families together, I felt a pang of regret. I missed my family, but I couldn't forgive them for what they had done. And then, last week, I got a call from my dad. The subject line of the email simply said, "We need to talk." I didn't want to respond. After everything, I didn't think I could face them. But something inside me made me open the message. It turned out that the ring had been found. Emily had accidentally knocked it into the garbage disposal while doing the dishes. She didn't realize it until a few days later when the disposal started making strange noises. A plumber was called to check, and that's when they discovered the ring lodged in the pipes. My father said that when Emily realized what had happened, she was devastated. She finally understood that I had been telling the truth all along. They all felt terrible about what they had done and wanted to make things right. I hung up the phone, feeling a mix of emotions. On one hand, I was vindicated. I had always known I was innocent, and now everyone knew it. But on the other hand, I was angry. It took 3 years for the truth to come out. 3 years of my life were lost because they chose to believe Emily instead of me. I had fought alone for so long, and now everything was different. My family wanted me to come home. Emily had been calling and texting nonstop, asking for my forgiveness, but I didn't know if I could forgive them. They had pushed me out without hesitation. They chose to believe the worst in me and left me to fend for myself for 3 years. I'm torn. Part of me wants to tell them to forget it and leave me alone, but another part of me misses the family I once had. I wonder if we can rebuild what was lost, but I don't know if I can ever fully trust them again.